Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about something that's been quietly creeping into our homes and influencing our kids in ways most of us barely notice. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. I want you to imagine it's a Tuesday afternoon in your living room, the clock ticking toward homework time, and your child is scrolling through TikTok. You might think, it's just harmless fun. But what if I told you those 15 to 60-second videos are subtly shaping your child's sexual awareness and ideas about relationships in ways you can't always see? Here's the thing. TikTok is designed to grab attention instantly. The bright colors, constant motion, trending sounds, they all work together like a magnet on developing brains. Kids aren't just consuming content. They're absorbing norms, gestures, and ideas about intimacy that might be way ahead of their emotional age. You're messing around with what seems like a simple video of a dance challenge or a lip sync, but embedded in that short clip could be notions about flirting, body language, or even sexual behavior. These aren't always obvious, which is why parents often miss the subtle shaping that's happening day after day. It's not about fear-mongering, it's about awareness. I remember one afternoon scrolling alongside my own kid, and a clip popped up labeled Relationship Tips for Teens. On the surface, it was funny, some exaggerated gestures, a goofy dance, but beneath that, there was an undertone suggesting that certain ways to act or dress were the only acceptable ways to get attention. My child laughed, and I laughed too. But inside, I knew this tiny video had just planted a seed about what is normal in romantic or sexual behavior. And seeds grow, whether we notice them or not. What makes this more complicated is that TikTok isn't static. The algorithm feeds content that matches a user's previous interactions. If a child shows curiosity about flirting, crushes, or even just dances, the platform will double down, showing more content along those lines. It's like an endless loop that subtly reinforces ideas without anyone pressing a play button on Teach Your Kid About Sexuality. You may think that because they're laughing at memes, they're safe, but the influence is accumulating under the radar. Parents often assume I'm talking about sex at home, so I'm covered. But here's the tricky part. TikTok's version of sexual awareness is often simplified, exaggerated, or just plain wrong. There are no disclaimers about healthy relationships, consent, or emotional boundaries. A 30-second video might present a scenario that seems cute, romantic, or harmless, but it can misrepresent complicated ideas about consent or peer pressure. Kids take what they see at face value. They don't have the experience or critical thinking skills to dissect nuance in the moment. You're essentially letting a highly addictive platform provide unsupervised lessons on intimacy, which, believe me, is not ideal. And it doesn't stop with obvious dating content. Even non-romantic trends can send messages about sexuality or self-perception. Think of dances that emphasize body movements or lip syncs with flirtatious undertones. At first glance, it's just performance art, but repetition, mimicry, and social reinforcement, seeing peers like or comment, teach kids that certain gestures, looks, or actions carry meaning. You might see it as harmless fun, but the brain is wiring associations between attention, attractiveness, and sexual expression. In other words, your child may start equating social approval with sexualized behavior long before they even understand what it really means. Another thing I noticed is the casual tone of these videos. Nothing feels serious, nothing feels instructional, yet that's the genius of it. Humor, lightness, and relatability lower the mental defenses we usually use when we're learning something important. Kids don't realize they're internalizing lessons about boundaries, intimacy, or body image because everything is wrapped up in fun, dance, or jokes. You're not witnessing a lecture, you're seeing a rapid-fire curriculum hidden in entertainment. It's also worth mentioning the social pressure angle. TikTok thrives on participation. Challenges, duets, and stitches aren't just content. They're invitations to join in. Kids feel compelled to participate to be seen, to belong, or to be cool. That pressure can push them to mimic behavior or jokes that lean into sexualized gestures or flirtation, even when they aren't entirely comfortable. As a parent, I can tell you that what looks like just a harmless trend is often the start of subtle peer-driven learning about sexual behavior before your child has the tools to critically evaluate what's happening. So, to wrap up this first part, the main idea here is that TikTok's hidden influence isn't about one shocking video or explicit content, it's about accumulation. Each clip, each dance, each joke slowly shapes perceptions about intimacy, relationships, and sexuality. Kids are learning lessons without realizing their lessons. And as a parent, awareness is the first step. If you can see the trends, understand their subtle messages, and start conversations at home, you can help your child develop a healthier understanding of intimacy before misinformation takes root. Now let's move forward and examine how viral challenges and peer pressure intensify these subtle lessons. When it comes to TikTok trends, the fun and playful veneer can be deceiving. Viral challenges often seem harmless, dance-offs, lip syncs, or silly duets. But behind that playful exterior, there's a subtle form of peer pressure that can push kids towards sexualized behaviors they might not fully understand. You're watching your child smile at a challenge video, thinking it's just entertainment, but in reality, these trends are teaching lessons about what's socially acceptable in relationships and flirting, without any of the guidance or context that they need. Peer influence on TikTok is relentless because of the way content spreads. When a video goes viral, it's everywhere. Your child sees classmates or older kids participating, and the social reinforcement is instant. Likes, comments, shares. The implicit message is clear. Everyone is doing this, so you should too. You might think that they're simply enjoying a funny dance, but those subtle gestures, winks, body movements, lip bites, or flirty commentary, can send a confusing message about boundaries, consent, and sexual expression. Over time, what starts as imitation of a silly trend can evolve into a script for how your child believes they should behave in social or romantic contexts. Let's talk about one example I came across recently. There was a viral challenge where teens recorded themselves reacting to crushes in exaggerated, flirtatious ways. On the surface, it seemed completely innocent, just over-the-top acting. But kids watch these videos repeatedly, and the exaggerated behaviors start to feel normal. They begin to mimic them in real life, not fully grasping that what they're practicing is a stylized version of flirting. You're essentially watching your child rehearse adult behaviors without the maturity to understand the emotional or ethical nuances. And the scary part? The algorithm notices this. Once a child interacts with these types of videos, TikTok doubles down, feeding them even more content in the same vein. It's important to remember that peer pressure doesn't have to be direct. Your child doesn't need someone physically telling them what to do. The pressure is embedded in the culture of virality itself. Seeing others get attention or approval for sexualized gestures makes participation feel like the social norm. Kids naturally want acceptance. It's wired into their development. And TikTok takes advantage of that instinct, making kids feel that if they're not participating, they're missing out or being left behind socially. Another layer is the feedback loop of comments and likes. A simple video might feature a teen dancing provocatively, and within hours, thousands of peers might comment with praise, teasing, or approval. Your child sees the attention and starts to associate sexualized behavior with social reward. It's subtle reinforcement, but it sticks. Over time, your child might begin testing these behaviors themselves, thinking it's just a way to fit in, have fun, or gain recognition. You're witnessing the socialization of sexual norms without any adult guidance. And it's not only about physical gestures. Verbal trends, audio clips, and text overlays carry messages too. Certain catchphrases or scripted responses teach kids what they should say to appear attractive or flirtatious. Your child might memorize these scripts without understanding context or boundaries. It's similar to learning a language, except the language being learned is about intimacy, sexuality, and peer validation. Without discussion at home, these lessons remain unexamined, potentially creating confusion or pressure when your child encounters real-life situations. Parents often underestimate this influence because it doesn't feel serious. They think, oh, they're just copying a dance, it's harmless. But harmlessness is a relative term here. What's considered fun and harmless today can create expectations for behavior tomorrow. The combination of peer pressure, viral reinforcement, and mimicry is powerful, especially on an algorithmic platform designed to keep users engaged. Kids are learning social cues for flirting, experimenting with boundaries, and exploring sexualized expression, all in a rapid, gamified environment. So, what can you do about it? The first step is awareness. Notice what trends are circulating, watch the videos alongside your child occasionally, and ask questions, not in a policing way, but in a curious, conversational way. You might say, "Hey, what's going on in this video? Why do you think everyone likes it?" These simple interventions don't stop the trend, but they give your child tools to think critically and separate fun from expectation. You're not banning social media, you're teaching discernment, which is far more effective in the long run. By understanding viral challenges and peer pressure on TikTok, you can see how seemingly innocent content can encourage sexualized behaviors. You're not trying to control every move. They need autonomy, but you are equipping them with awareness and context. It's about turning exposure into conversation, not just consumption. The next step in our story examines how educational content on TikTok can mislead children about sexual health, consent, and relationships, often under the guise of fun or informative videos. Section 3. TikTok isn't just a playground for dances and challenges. It's also filled with content claiming to educate about sex, relationships, or consent. At first glance, that might sound helpful, right? I mean, any source of information could be good for curious kids. But here's the catch. Most of these clips are oversimplified, misleading, or even downright wrong. You're scrolling with your child, thinking, this is just a few facts. But the truth is, these videos can distort their understanding of sexual health before they have a chance to ask informed questions. The problem starts with the format itself. TikTok videos are short, sometimes just 15 or 30 seconds. That's barely enough time to convey a complete, nuanced idea about intimacy, consent, or sexual boundaries. Yet creators try to compress complex topics into rapid-fire snippets. So, kids often get incomplete information. Maybe a catchy rule, a one-line tip, or a simplified concept that sounds authoritative but isn't accurate. For example, a video might claim, "Always say yes if someone likes you," or "This move guarantees attraction," which is not only misleading, but potentially dangerous. You're watching, thinking it's funny or clever, but in your child's mind, these quick lessons can become mental shortcuts about relationships. Another factor is credibility. TikTok doesn't require creators to be experts, certified educators, or even knowledgeable. Teens and young adults can post advice that looks polished or confident. Your child may not have the ability to differentiate between a peer opinion and a scientifically informed fact. That distinction is critical because sexual education isn't just about mechanics. It's about understanding boundaries, consent, emotional readiness, and communication. A 30-second clip rarely covers all of that, yet kids internalize it as truth. You're essentially letting an app's entertainment value dictate the first lessons on intimacy, which is risky. Humor and relatability also play a big role in misleading educational content. Many creators use jokes, trending sounds, or dramatizations to make points stick. That might make a concept easier to digest, but it also muddies the message. A flippant joke about how to kiss or what boys like can be misinterpreted as real advice. Kids often don't have the experience or emotional maturity to parse context, so what looks like harmless comedy can influence their expectations and behaviors in real-life interactions. You might see your child laughing along, thinking they're just having fun, but those jokes are teaching lessons that stick. Then there's the issue of algorithmic reinforcement again. Once a child interacts with one educational video, TikTok's system assumes they're interested in that type of content and serves more. Suddenly, your child's feed is full of overlapping, inconsistent messages about sexuality. One clip might say, "Consent is important," while another jokes about sneaky flirting. Without guidance, kids can internalize mixed messages, thinking that some risky behavior is normal, funny, or even expected. You're trying to supervise, but the content pipeline moves faster than any parent can keep up with. You might be wondering, isn't it enough to just have conversations at home? And the answer is yes, but only if you're proactive and specific. Kids won't naturally correct misconceptions from TikTok. They'll assume the content is factual unless guided otherwise. That means you need to address what they see, discuss why certain trends or tips are misleading, explore emotional and physical boundaries, and give them real-life examples that are age-appropriate. You're essentially giving them a filter that TikTok lacks. Without this intervention, they may believe short-form content can replace real knowledge, a dangerous assumption when it comes to sexual awareness. It's also worth mentioning the psychological effect of quick, repeatable content. Because these educational clips are so short, kids can watch them over and over, memorizing rules, rather than understanding context. They may even test these rules in social situations, only to discover later that real-life interaction is far more nuanced. You're watching a digital version of trial and error learning, except the trials are shaped by entertainment algorithms rather than informed guidance. It's confusing for children and stressful for parents, because what seems harmless online can have real-world consequences. So, the takeaway here is that not all informational content is helpful. TikTok compresses, distorts, and often misrepresents sexual knowledge. Kids are learning incomplete lessons and assuming they're complete, which is a perfect storm for misunderstandings about intimacy, boundaries, and consent. You can't stop every video, but you can guide your child to think critically, ask questions, and separate entertainment from education. By doing this, you provide the context that TikTok never will. Next, we'll look at how seemingly harmless trends actually normalize risky behaviors, from stunts and pranks to flirtatious routines, pushing children into real-world experimentation before they're ready. Now that we've talked about misleading educational content, it's time to examine how TikTok trends normalize risky behavior. You might think, oh, my child isn't doing anything dangerous online. But the truth is, many challenges, dances, and pranks subtly encourage experimentation that can spill over into real life. You're watching your kids smile at a funny video, but the combination of mimicry, peer validation, and trend following can push them toward actions they're not emotionally or physically ready for. Take the example of pranks or challenges that involve physical closeness, daring gestures, or flirting. A clip might show teens testing attraction through touching or exaggerated body language. On screen, it's framed as humor or fun, but your child sees a model for behavior. Repetition reinforces the idea that this conduct is normal or expected. You're not just observing a dance, you're seeing a social script form, one that associates risk-taking with attention and popularity. TikTok's algorithm amplifies this effect. Once a child engages with even mildly risky content, more similar videos are served up, creating a feedback loop. Suddenly, a harmless challenge turns into a set of repeated behaviors, and your child may feel compelled to try it offline to keep up or to gain peer approval. The danger is subtle. The line between playful imitation and unsafe experimentation blurs. You might catch snippets of these behaviors, but the full influence often goes unnoticed until patterns emerge. It's also worth noting that many of these trends involve sexualized gestures or behaviors. Dances with suggestive moves, lip syncs to flirtatious audio, or pranks framed around crushes can teach kids that certain actions are not only normal, but desirable. The danger lies in the implicit messaging that attention, popularity, or approval is tied to sexualized behavior. You're not seeing overt teaching moments. It's the subtler, everyone is doing it pressure that has a real impact. Another factor is group participation. Trends often encourage duets, stitches, or collaborative challenges. Your child may be drawn to participate simply to belong, not because they fully understand what the content implies. Social reinforcement, likes, comments, shares, teaches them that risky or sexualized actions earn validation. You're witnessing peer-driven socialization, amplified by a digital platform, creating patterns of behavior before your child has the tools to critically assess them. Even trends that appear innocent can have indirect consequences. A harmless-looking prank might involve embarrassment, minor deception, or testing personal boundaries. Your child might imitate these actions without considering consent, privacy, or emotional impact. Over time, repeated exposure to these normalized behaviors can influence how they approach real-life relationships. You're essentially observing an accelerated form of social learning, one shaped by entertainment algorithms rather than careful guidance. So what's a parent to do? Awareness is the first step, but active guidance is essential. Watch the trends your child is drawn to, discuss what's happening, and explain potential risks. Ask questions like, why do you think this is popular? Or how would you feel if someone did this to you? These simple prompts can transform passive viewing into critical thinking. You're not banning participation. You're helping your child understand boundaries, risk, and respect. By recognizing how trends normalize risky behavior, you can see why supervision and conversation are crucial. You're not just protecting your child, you're giving them a framework to navigate social media responsibly, distinguishing entertainment from expectation. Next, we'll look at how filtered bodies and unrealistic beauty standards add another layer of pressure, shaping self-image and perceptions of normalcy. One of the most visually striking yet insidious aspects of TikTok is the way it distorts body image through filters, effects, and carefully curated content. Kids are constantly exposed to clips where bodies are enhanced, proportions are altered, and skin looks flawless under every lighting condition. You're scrolling with your child, thinking it's just makeup tutorials or funny filters, but what they're absorbing is a standard for normal that doesn't exist. The subtle message is clear. To be liked, noticed, or valued, your body must match a digital ideal. Filters play a huge role here. A simple smoothing effect, nose reshaping, or height adjustment might seem harmless, but repeated exposure trains the eye to accept the altered as the ordinary. Your child starts comparing themselves to versions of people who literally don't exist in reality. These tiny visual manipulations accumulate, shaping self-esteem and influencing behavior. You're watching a harmless trend, but your child is internalizing a set of expectations they cannot naturally meet. It's not just facial filters. Full body effects, clothing try-ons, and dance videos exaggerate proportions and movement. Suddenly, a certain shape or size becomes associated with attractiveness, popularity, or desirability. Peer feedback intensifies the impact. Likes, shares, and positive comments on filtered bodies signal approval. You might notice your child mirroring these styles or adjusting their appearance to match trends. Even subtle mimicry reinforces the message that normalcy is digitally defined. Another layer is the role of lighting, angles, and editing. TikTok videos often employ bright, flattering lighting and smooth transitions that create a cinematic illusion of perfection. Every movement is rehearsed, every gesture calculated. Kids may attempt to replicate these conditions in their own recordings, not realizing that the standard they're chasing is artificial. You're seeing creativity in action, but what your child sees is a benchmark for self-worth. Social comparison compounds the issue. As kids scroll through feeds filled with seemingly perfect peers, they naturally compare themselves. Even minor differences, height, weight, skin tone, or posture, can feel like flaws when contrasted with filtered perfection. You're trying to encourage confidence, but the digital environment undermines it, presenting unattainable standards in a way that feels real and immediate. Parents often underestimate how early this pressure begins. Preteens and teens, in particular, are highly sensitive to peer approval and self-perception. Exposure to filtered bodies and polished performances can shape not only self-esteem, but also ideas about sexual desirability and social acceptance. You're watching a visual lesson in comparison, one that teaches kids their natural appearance is not enough. So what can you do? Start conversations about what kids are seeing. Explain how filters, angles, and editing distort reality. Encourage self-reflection rather than imitation. You might ask, does this look real to you? Or how would this person look without filters? These small interventions help children separate performance from reality. You're not policing creativity, you're giving them the tools to engage critically. By understanding the power of visual distortion, you can see how TikTok shapes not only self-image, but also sexual awareness indirectly. Kids are learning what desirable looks like before they've even had a chance to define it for themselves. In our next section, we'll explore practical strategies for parents to protect, guide, and converse with children without overreacting, helping them navigate both social media and their emerging understanding. After everything we've explored, the subtle influence of trends, peer pressure, misleading content, normalized risky behavior, and distorted body images, the final question is, what can parents actually do to protect and guide their children? The truth is, there's no single solution, but a combination of awareness, conversation, and gentle supervision can make a big difference. You're not trying to control every interaction. You're equipping your child with the tools to navigate social media responsibly. First, awareness is key. Know what trends are circulating, which influencers are popular, and the types of videos your child is watching. You don't need to micromanage, but periodic observation can provide insight into what your child is exposed to. Watching together opens the door for conversations without judgment. You might say, "I saw this video trending. What do you think about it?" Or, "Have you noticed how many of these challenges involve risky behaviors?" These questions encourage reflection rather than compliance. Next, make conversation a habit. Kids are more likely to absorb lessons when they feel safe asking questions and expressing curiosity. Discuss topics like consent, boundaries, and healthy relationships in ways that are age appropriate and relatable. You're not delivering a lecture. You're sharing insights and opening the space for discussion. Even casual conversations, like talking about a funny or confusing TikTok clip, can reinforce critical thinking and self-awareness. Setting boundaries around screen time and content is another practical approach. Encourage breaks, limit late-night scrolling, and foster a balanced media diet. You might implement tech-free times for meals, homework, or family activities. The goal isn't to ban TikTok entirely, but to prevent overexposure and reduce the intensity of algorithmic reinforcement. You're giving your child space to develop offline skills, hobbies, and relationships that anchor their understanding of self and social dynamics. Model critical engagement as well. Talk about how content is produced, how filters alter reality, and why some trends are misleading. Show your child that social media is a tool for entertainment, not a blueprint for behavior or self-worth. You're teaching discernment, which is far more valuable than policing every video. When kids learn to question and analyze, they develop resilience against unrealistic or harmful content. Encourage creativity in safe, constructive ways. If your child enjoys creating videos, suggest topics that explore humor, storytelling, or education without sexualized or risky elements. Highlight positive engagement rather than viral approval. You're helping them redirect the same energy that might be used in risky trends into productive and affirming expression. Finally, maintain open communication. Regularly check in on how your child feels about trends, peer interactions, and online content. Listen without judgment and validate their experiences. If mistakes happen or missteps occur, use them as teachable moments rather than punishments. You're fostering trust, which is essential for long-term guidance and support. By combining awareness, conversation, boundaries, modeling, creativity, and open communication, parents can help children navigate TikTok and other social media platforms safely. You're not trying to control their world. You're giving them a compass to make informed choices about behavior, relationships, and self-image. Crash, summary, and ending. Across these 6 sections, we've walked through the hidden influence of TikTok on young minds. From subtle peer pressure and viral challenges to misleading educational content, normalized risky behavior, and distorted body image, the platform exerts influence in ways many parents don't fully realize. Each section built on the last, showing how exposure accumulates over time and why awareness and active guidance are crucial. By understanding the algorithmic reinforcement, the subtle messaging and trends, and the ways visuals manipulate perception, parents can step in without overreacting. Conversations, modeling critical thinking, setting boundaries, and encouraging safe creativity all work together to equip children with the tools to navigate a complex digital landscape. You're not policing every video. They're learning to filter content, evaluate trends, and understand their own boundaries in a supportive environment. Ultimately, it's about trust and dialogue. Social media isn't going away, and TikTok will continue to evolve. By staying informed, engaged, and patient, parents can help children build healthy sexual awareness, self-esteem, and social skills. Your guidance becomes the anchor that helps them separate entertainment from reality, fun from pressure, and curiosity from confusion. Enjoy listening and subscribe to the channel to see the next video. Open quote, open quote, open quote, script complete, close quote, close quote, close quote.